Hello everybody, welcome to Brighton Youth Service Online. If you have been in Brighton Youth for at least 2 years now, you will realize that there are certain recurring topics that we talk about on this platform every year. Just to let you in on the behind the scenes for our weekly preaching. Every year in September, we will plan out the entire preaching calendar for the following year. We will put in all the topics that we want to cover according to what we think is important and relevant for all of us in that season. There are some topics that we think is important to talk about every year, like romance, studies, Christian community, and the reliability of Christianity. And starting from this year, I want to start another recurring conversation which I think is crucial for everybody in the youth stage of their lives, and that is leadership. I think among teenagers, there are two main groups of people. The first group are the people who want to be leaders. You are eager to step up, to serve, and represent people. Maybe right now you are trying to get into student council, the executive committee, EXCO of your CCA, or be appointed as a peer support leader. Or maybe you want to be a cell group leader. Come speak to me after this service, okay? The second group of people are those who don't want to be or don't think they can be leaders. You think that nobody will listen to you, or maybe you are turned off by the student leaders in your school. All those people are so arrogant and hypocritical. They are just there for the glory and CCA points. I don't want to be seen like them. No matter which group you are in, I want to say this. It is absolutely normal to desire to become a leader. In fact, all of us should grow in leadership because there will be situations in your life that require you to step up as a leader. Here is where we need to change our understanding of leadership. Okay, write this down somewhere. Leadership is about influence, not position. You don't need to be given a position for you to exercise leadership. A leader is somebody who can influence even without a position. You know this, right? There are some people, even with the position, can't influence or move the people under them. So how can we become leaders of influence? And that's what we want to talk about in this brand new series, Dare to Lead. If I were to ask you what makes a great leader, you probably would say that person needs to be good at what he's doing. So it's about competency. You might also say that that person needs to be good at talking. So it's about charisma. But here's the thing. People might be attracted to competency and charisma, but they follow character. Character is the most important foundation to leadership. If you have a bad character, it does not matter how competent or charismatic you are, you will not be able to influence people. Leadership is a huge topic, and in this series, this year, I want to give us the basics towards becoming a leader of character. And today, I want to start off with what I think is the most important factor of being a leader of character, and that is being reliable. Let me share with you 3 points on what it means to be reliable and why it is so important to leadership. And the first point is this: you need to keep your word. Do you have to deal with people who don't keep their word? One of my biggest frustrations is to interact with people who don't do what they promise. Have you ever heard somebody say, yes, I'll be there at that time, and he comes 15 minutes later than agreed? Or somebody who says, yes, I will get this done, but you have to keep reminding him to finish the work? Or somebody who every week says, yeah, I'll be there, and for some mysterious reason, urgent, last-minute matters will appear every week, suddenly on that same day. Sorry, I need to do this. Sorry, I suddenly remember I cannot come. You might think that going back on your word might seem harmless. After all, nobody is hurt in the process, right? But no, you are hurt. Each time when you go back on your word, the trust that people have for you is eroded. Do it once, people will think it was a genuine mistake. Do it twice, people will start to see a pattern. Do it thrice, people will conclude that you are unreliable. Question: would you trust and follow a leader who is unreliable? Probably not. And if you are unreliable with keeping your own promises, why would anybody entrust you with bigger things? There's a man in the Bible called Joseph. He went through a series of unfortunate events. He was nearly murdered by his own brothers, and they sold him into slavery in a foreign country. If you were slave Joseph, you would probably be thinking about keeping yourself alive rather than keeping your word. And yet, in the dark times of Joseph's life, Joseph chose to stick with doing the right things. And there was an interesting event that put his reliability to the test. Let's read from Genesis chapter 39. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Okay, this woman is a thirsty housewife. But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her and even to be with her. One day he went to the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. The irony is that Joseph was eventually thrown into prison by his master because the thirsty housewife framed him for attempted rape. But this incident showcased that Joseph was indeed a reliable person. He was a man of his word. Think about it, Joseph was a slave. And in those times, slaves were not treated as human beings. Okay, they were no different from a household equipment like a vacuum cleaner. Yet Joseph's master entrusted everything he owned to his care, only because he was a man who keeps his word. If he says he will not steal any valuables, he will not do it. If he says he will get something done, he will get it done. If he says he will not sleep with his thirsty mistress, he will run away from her. Now, even if you do not know anything else about this Joseph in the Bible, just by reading this story, you will think that he is special, isn't it? You will admire him, you're attracted to him because he keeps his word no matter what. And guys, do you know that you too can become influential and attractive just by keeping your word? When you choose to keep your word, people will trust you and entrust things to you. You see, leadership is not just about telling people what to do. It is about being responsible for the people entrusted to you. If you are unreliable in keeping your word, will anybody entrust their lives to you? You can't be a leader if nobody wants to follow you, right? Will any organization trust you with people and resources? No. But if you are somebody who keeps his word no matter what, you will be entrusted with everything. So let's start with something simple, shall we? The next time, before you say or type something out as a promise, think twice first. Don't make promises hastily just so that you can look good for the moment. If you can't make it, it's fine. Don't overpromise. But once you have promised something, you better do everything within your power to keep your word. If you don't take your word seriously, nobody will take you seriously. If you can be trusted with small things, you will be entrusted with bigger things. The second thing on what it means to be a reliable leader is to do a good job. When I was serving my national service, I learned an interesting tagline. It is, act blur, live longer. It means that if you can pretend that you don't know or you were not informed about something, you can avoid all the hassles of doing that work or the negative consequences. Have you ever heard somebody say, "Hey, sorry, I didn't know I need to do this." Or, "Hey, sorry, I didn't see the messengers." You see, one of our biggest bad habits, okay, I use our, is that we think as long as we can provide a legit sounding reason, we can be excused from doing a good job. We can just do the bare minimum and get away with it. Okay, this is a bad habit that all of us need to avoid. And think about it, if I want to choose somebody to be a leader, why would I want to choose somebody who is consistently meeting only the bare minimum or less? There are so many people who can do the job, but I would prefer somebody who is consistently doing a good job to be a leader. Now, I know some of you will be thinking, but I'm so stupid and incapable. I don't know whether I can do a good job. You see, doing a good job is not about intelligence, but excellence. Doing a good job is not about aptitude, but attitude. When you make it a point to do your best in everything entrusted to you, people will see you as a reliable person, and you will be entrusted with more. Coming back to our story of Joseph, do you know that because Joseph did a good job in everything entrusted to him, he was promoted not just once, not just twice, but 3 times in his life. His story is so fascinating. The first time happened when he was being sold as a slave, okay, like what we read just now. Verse 3, when his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar, okay, that's the name of his master, put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. And after being framed by the thirsty housewife, Joseph was thrown into prison. Guess what? As a prisoner, he continued to do his best, and he was promoted. Verse 22, so the warder put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warder paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Joseph was promoted to become the team leader of all the prisoners because he continued to do a good job even as a prisoner. The warder, like Potiphar, entrusted everything to Joseph because he was reliable. And finally, the biggest promotion of Joseph's life, 13 years after being sold to slavery, came when he appeared before the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, to interpret a mysterious dream for him and set up a plan to save Egypt from a famine. And this is what happened. Genesis 41. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Joseph went from being a slave to become the prime minister of Egypt. Talk about comeback. But it is important to remember that Joseph went through severe hardship as a slave and prisoner for 13 years. But during those years, he continued to do his best, do a good job in whatever place he was in. And eventually, he was promoted and entrusted with an entire nation to lead. Guys, wherever you are right now, don't belittle the seemingly small tasks entrusted to you. Think about it. Joseph did a good job as a slave. How does it even look like? Maybe he mopped the floor harder, he wiped the furniture shinier, he washed the clothes cleaner. Those tasks are so insignificant and thankless. And yet that is exactly what we all need to do a good job in everything, big or small, entrusted to us. Some scenarios. If you are tasked to prepare a birthday card for somebody in the group, make sure you do it way ahead of time so that the card can be ready before you guys sing the birthday song and celebrate. Avoid the situation where you tell the birthday person, sorry, still writing your card. If you are tasked to order dinner for the group, decide the menu 2 days before. Send out a message to the group chat 1 day before and order ahead of time so that the group can have dinner on time. If you are planning a program, leading a game, or playing for worship, prepare and practice in advance. Don't assume you can improvise on the spot and think, it's okay, I just do the bare minimum. Do a good job so that you give everybody participating a good experience to remember. So guys, if you do a good job in everything entrusted to you diligently, you will serve before kings, like Joseph. You will be promoted and be given greater things to lead. It all starts with the small things. The third and final thing of what it means to be a reliable leader is to honor God. If you read the story of Joseph, there is one undeniable recurring feature in his journey, and that is the Lord was with him and gave him success in whatever he did. Whatever that Joseph was already doing faithfully, God added to his effort and caused his work to bear fruit. And the question for all of us is, what is so special about Joseph that he has such favor from God? And we can find the answer from what he said to his brothers at the end of the story. Okay, a bit of background before we read. At this point in time, Joseph's father, Jacob, had died. And the brothers were afraid that Joseph, now the prime minister of Egypt, will take the chance to take revenge. And Joseph's response to them is really the most captivating part of his entire story. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. What is the secret to Joseph's success? Because he chose to honor God in every situation, both good and bad times in his life. When he was a slave, he chose not to give in to sexual temptation to pleasure himself, because he did not want to sin against God. When he was powerful, he chose not to take revenge because he wanted to honor God. Only God alone can punish people. And because Joseph chose to honor God throughout his life, God was so pleased with him that he gave him success in everything he did. If you are a Christian, does it mean that God will stop loving you if you sin? Of course not. But it does mean that the more you please and honor God, the more you will see his hands moving in your life. One of the most important things about being a good leader is that you never compromise your core values. For example, you uphold integrity and always do the right things, no matter how tough the decision is. You don't cheat just because it is tempting. You practice fairness, even though you can get something out from favoritism. Are these things difficult to do? Yes, they are. And if you don't do them, people will not follow or they will stop following you because you are unreliable. And as Christians, we have a powerful motivation to uphold our core values because we want to honor God. When you honor God in every area of your lives, people will be attracted to you. I know some of you are afraid of people calling you a GCB or a GCG, okay, a good Christian boy and good Christian girl. But guys, how is that an insult? That is a compliment. They might think that you are boring, but remember, people don't follow charisma, but character. Let me close with this. When we honor God in every area of our life, not only does it make people trust us more, but God himself will also be pleased to move his hands more in our lives as well. The story of Joseph reminds us that ultimately, promotion does not come from people, but from God. God was the one who gave Joseph success and promoted him. Why? Because God wanted Joseph to be the leader to save the lives of people. The story of Joseph has such a strong parallel to the story of Jesus. Both Joseph and Jesus suffered harm, and God turned something beautiful out from their brokenness, the saving of many lives. When God calls you to become a leader, you might feel that you have to go through a lot of hardship and difficulties, but he will use you to touch many lives. And I pray that out from Brighton Youth, we will see many leaders emerging and saving many lives. And today, would you choose to take that first step by making a commitment to become a reliable person?